Hello, KLV Podcast listeners. Welcome back to HQ, where the team of KLV Weddings shares their thoughts on business, marketing, and more. I am your showrunner, Bryan. Let's get into it.
All right. Hey, welcome back to another episode of what goddamn podcast are we on? Quarantine. Welcome back to another episode on the KLV Podcast. All right. I haven't been a showrunner in a little bit of a time. So we're doing things a little different today. Episode number 13, To Infinity and Beyond. I'll explain that in a little bit. Bryan can't be with us today, so I'm taking his place. I'm in his chair. I'm going to be Bryan and Meg today. But anyway, hopefully still this show provides some value for you guys listening. As always, we talk about business and marketing based on our wedding photography business. So a little bit different. We did a live show last time. I didn't want to do that again because the audio really bugged me. There was a lot of feedback going around. And I think we can do an online thing. It's definitely possible, but we're not really set up for it. So we're just going to keep adjusting and talk about the infinity mindset, vis-a-vis this new book that I'm reading, The Infinite Game. And it's a good book when you're barely making a dent in it and it's changing your life. So I wanted to share some things I was thinking about today. How could I provide value and service throughout this time? And as you know, for those of you that may be listening to this in the future or something, we're dealing with a pandemic across the globe. And I was reading this right when everything was going down. And it really changed my mindset in terms of how we were going to respond as a company. This was like back in maybe like March 10th, 11th, something like that, before we were starting to get a lot of the news coming through. So it definitely came at the perfect time for us to make moves. And we were deciding, well, how are we going to handle, the biggest quandary was, how are we going to handle clients that are maybe possibly canceling or moving their dates around? And what does that mean for us as a company? Like, do we charge for that, like a rebooking fee, and how much do we charge, and things like that? And I ultimately landed on a couple things which I'll talk about. So I'm just going to share 3 things that I've gone through in this little tidbit of this book, and maybe you can apply it to your life. Definitely, if you're a business owner and entrepreneur, definitely you can apply it there, and just see. Hopefully that this gives you a sort of infinite mindset into how you're making decisions, because the decisions that you're doing right now definitely it could be just a result of you. That's how you've always acted, or how you've made decisions, or how you've always been, and you could continue that, and that's just how you are. Or you can change, or you can learn, and you can adapt and adjust. And so definitely everyone around the world, entrepreneur or not, we're making decisions in our homes, possibly when nobody's watching, and that may very much indeed cause a ripple effect throughout the rest of your life, if and when this crisis is over. So let me go over the 3 things, okay? So number 1, I'll just kind of explain, maybe you can kind of get the idea of the difference between an infinite mindset, this is what this talks about, versus a finite mindset. Okay, so I'll give you a couple examples here, and I'll just read some of the highlighted things, and you can grab from it what you will, and then maybe kind of consider, okay, this is an infinite way of looking at things versus a finite way of looking at things. Okay. And these are the things that stood out to me the most. Finite-minded players do not like surprises and fear of any kind of disruption. Things that they cannot predict or cannot control could upset their plans and increase their chances of losing. Losing in a very maybe we should define what infinite and infinity mindset, an infinity mindset and a finite mindset is. A finite player. So I'll give you I'll read a little passage about the infinity and finite mindset in business, okay? So in business, that means seeing beyond the bottom line. Where a finite-minded player makes products they think they can sell to people, the infinite-minded player makes products that people want to buy. See the difference? Think about it. Okay. The former is primarily focused on how to scale, on how the scale of those products benefits the company. The latter is primarily focused on how the products benefit those who buy them. So this is really telling in the industry of wedding photography. So if you're coming, say, and looking at the business model of wedding photography, we are a service-based business, right? We show up, we serve, we have to personally be there and personally wear all these hats to be there for our clients so that we can get another client and continue this business model. Versus I make a product, for example, coffee. I can make product like that. I don't physically have to be there when it's sold. And all of the care is just in the product alone. You could argue that it's in how I deliver it to you or sell you it or whatever, but you can scale that product, and that's it. Like I could just looking at it and based on this definition, I could just sell you coffee that way. That's a finite sort of minded player, like a product-based company versus a service-based company. Okay. Finite-minded players tend to follow standards that help them achieve their personal goals with less regard to the effects of the ripples that they may cause. For example, in our business, if I was just thinking with a finite mindset, and this happens a lot, where you're really just concerned about what's good for you and the company, and maybe not, for example, say your clients or the team. You could be shooting a wedding and just making sure that you get all the shots. You show up, you're a robot, you get all the shots, and there's no personal interaction, there's no emotional connection, there's no feeling of trust, mutual trust between the two of you. That's really it. Like that's a really good example of a finite-minded player trying to scale at wedding photography. There are a lot of companies out there that I feel that can do this, and I feel like when I ran the company called Bells and Laces, I tried to be emotional, but there was a lot of disconnect that happened just because I wasn't the one personally attending to the clients on their wedding day. I was managing people and sending out teams, and the teams would go out, they would shoot, and they would go home. That's it. There's no like, hey, I met you in the meeting room. I'm going to shoot your engagement, and then I'm going to shoot your wedding, and then I'm going to deliver the images to you. So there's a disconnect. That's a way to look at it. During this time of this pandemic, a finite mindset could have meant that we as a company, like Kevin and I, could have just been like, let's lay off everybody. Let's start to hoard all of our food, our supplies, our money, our cash reserves, our thinking about the future so that we can hold on to our business. Let's cut off all of our lead photographers and second photographers. We can just run this company by ourselves and keep all the profits. That's a finite mindset versus the infinite mindset, which just gave more validation to the things that I was already planning to do. Was, hey, how are we going to be creative right now? How are we going to make sure that everybody stays with us? How are we going to remind everybody that we're still here as a company, we're still strong, we're still resilient through all of these seemingly uncertain times? And I kind of knew that things would never be the same. I mean, things change, and so I was always planning and we're just wondering when it was going to happen, like when the golden age of us always making money or always shooting or always having a job to do was going to be interrupted or end if that happened too. So it was great that I was already kind of thinking that way and that it didn't induce much panic at all. I was just like, all right, every day, like, okay, that's the situation. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Not so much being reactive, but sort of like, okay, like just kind of coasting and rolling with the punches. Okay, let me continue. So, like I said, finite-minded players do not like surprises and fear any kind of disruption. The infinite-minded player, in contrast, expects surprises and even revels in them. I don't know if I reveled in this change, but is prepared to be transformed by them. So definitely, I knew that with this crisis and how we were going to respond, definitely in that I was sort of put off by how there was an initial talk of companies like, say, the CDC, not companies, but how the CDC and the World Health Organization were saying and kind of mandating that businesses should provide some sort of relief for late fees or relief for rebooking fees or just being more flexible with cancellation policies and stuff like that. I didn't like hearing that at first because maybe my ego was thinking, hey, don't speak for me. Don't speak for my business. We need to do what's right for us. And I didn't like that something outside of us was, mandating us to do something. Little did I know later on, the state was just going to shut things off or shut things down. I didn't know that could really happen. I was just going to be like, oh, okay. So if somebody got COVID, they just wouldn't come to your wedding. That's how I would view it. I was just like, well, it's just like the flu, right? I mean, more people die from the flu every year than with this COVID so far. But again, that was with the little information that I had and maybe not being as sensitive as I could be. So when it came down to clients sort of panicking and emailing us and going, hey, what's your policy? What's your policy on cancellations? So I was still pretty firm about, if you cancel your wedding, we can't do anything about your deposit. But otherwise, we can we can rebook it for you. And at the time I was thinking, I'm just going to charge a rebooking fee because that's standard. That's our policy. Right. And I thought it was just going to be one or two people. And I was like, one or two people, that's fine. And then sooner or later, more and more clients were like, hey, I have to book. I have to move it. I don't want to move it. I have to move it. And so I think during this time, there's a lot of times where you keep business and you keep it emotionless. This was a time where I felt, and it felt like the right thing to do, to be compassionate, empathize that it's not, they didn't want to do this. They didn't want to cancel. It wasn't just out of fear. It was out of, somebody's mandating you to move or postpone the date. And I was not thinking about just this one wedding or just this one time or just this one year. Like the book says, when you have an infinity mindset, you think about the lifetime and beyond, infinity and beyond of your company. So I thought the decision to not charge a rebooking fee during this time for any COVID-related postponement or things like this was okay. It was a solid, good pass on that to waive the fee and not to charge any rebooking fees. And I felt that it was the right thing to do. Not that everybody else was doing it and that it was mandated by CDC or HW, the World Health Organization. It just felt like the right thing to do. And definitely when I thought about it, I was like, we don't need to do that. We don't need to grab onto every dime and penny that we can pull from our clients. This is not our intention. It's not the reason why we're in this business is to make money off rebooking fees. It's to provide memories, forever, to last forever. And that's why we're in this business. So once I read this, it just really validated to me. It gave me a clarity in terms of how we're going to move and make decisions based upon that. When you address your company in this way, or whatever you do with an infinite mindset, you're not just in this game to win this next quarter, or to win or to make the most money in this year. That's a cool little goal that you could have, but what are you doing in the long term, and the legacy of your company and what you're doing, the legacy of your life? How are you making decisions that could ripple? And I know that sounds like kind of like a lot of pressure, but to me, it was very simple. It was, do you have compassion or not? Are you going to make the right decision or not? And so definitely having that infinite mindset is definitely transforming the way I'm making decisions. It just gives me another layer of depth into why we're doing the things that we're doing here. So, and you could take that and parallel into the rest of your life, why you are, maybe eating correctly and not eating a bunch of junk food right now, which I'm like, I don't have an infinite mindset of my diet right now. You want to eat healthily and work out and keep your mind sharp, because in the infinite mindset person during this time, there's life after this. There's life after you just couch potatoing and in Netflix and chill, right? There's life after it. So what are you doing to make sure that you're ready to take on the workload, the explosion of energy that comes afterward? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you know and hear what I'm saying? I think it's so good. It's very when you kind of know already, but when you hear it, when you read it, when you see it played out for you, where you can get a bird's eye view of things and go, oh, I see. Like you just give me more and more clarity. It's like it's coming more and more and more into focus. Okay. All right. Next thing. The next thing. Okay. This is something I shared in our last live show. The difference between stability and resilience. All right. A company built for resilience is a company that is structured to last forever. This is different from a company built for stability. Stability, by its very definition, is about remaining the same. Okay. But a company built for stability still fails to understand the nature of the infinite game of life, the infinite game of business. For it is likely still not prepared for the unpredictable, vis-a-vis COVID, right? So for the new technology, vis-a-vis TikTok, new competition, market shift, the economic shift that's going to come after this whole craziness, or world events that can, in an instant, derail their strategy. All right, an infinite-minded leader does not simply want to build a company that can weather change, but one that can be transformed by it. They want to build a company that embraces surprises and adapts with them. So just like I said, we're trying to be resilient through these daily updates that we're getting, these new things coming through. How can we be creative? We start turning the wheels and not panicking, just going, okay, all right, so that's the situation. What can I do? How can I make sure that I can be resilient, then survive, and then thrive after? Because there'll always be a time of, feast and famine for all of us. And what you're doing during your famine portions, when you're just trying to survive, and humbling yourself to do that, sometimes you have to, I don't know, maybe like for us, for example, we filed unemployment. Not that we're hurting, but we want to make sure that we have take advantage of all the resources that we have. Our government luckily is providing something for us. Is it the best? No, but it's something. So cool. Let's just work with what we've got. Start building up our reserves, start making sure that we can survive, and definitely not splurging on things that we don't need, or living a over luxurious lifestyle. Okay. All right. And then, as you're in those famine times or surviving times, to be ready and willing to go bring it again and work hard and hustle and grit for when it's go time, when it's feast time. Okay. All right. So those were the big ones. I just wanted to share 3 things. I highlighted 3 little passages that I wanted to share with you guys. And that is the infinite mindset. So in a very big way, those are kind of the I guess the major things that I wanted to share with you in terms of how this book is affecting us during this time. And funnily enough, when you ask for help or when you want to be guided, something pops up in your life and shows you the way. And so definitely when I was done with one of his other books, Leaders Eat Last, I was ready to receive another way of how I could upgrade my thinking. And this definitely it came at the right time. So, during this time, like I've reminded our team here at KLV Weddings, is to stay sharp. How can you stay sharp when you only have a home and when you have a roof over your head, you have food in your belly, when you have the internet? Okay, you have the internet. So this is a time not to get lazy. You don't have to work yourself to the bone or anything right now. I think it's a great time, like Kevin was saying. He's like, man, I kind of like this break because it feels like he can actually relax without feeling guilt. It's a guilt-free relax right now. Like everybody's taking a break, right? At the same time, everybody's doing that, but also it's also a chance to go, okay, well, everybody's doing that. What am I doing? What am I doing to rise above and make sure that I'm going to be resilient throughout all of this? Definitely, to me personally, I haven't really felt too much of the effects. Thank goodness. All of my family members are healthy and not affected by this very drastically. So in this time, I'm bunkering down. I'm reading a lot more. I'm spending more time to just do all the little things and appreciate that I can do all the little things, and I'm not so much worried about the big things, because we always knew that there's feast and famine in your lifespan and in the lifespan of your business. So be prepared for that. If you weren't prepared for it and you're freaking out, like the book says, the infinite mindset is to let yourself be transformed by it. Yes, this is unpredictable and unprecedented and perhaps very tough on you, but let yourself maybe be open to the idea of how will this transform me in that? How will I learn and be better? How will I get outside of myself and not succumb to short-term wins or short-term gains or things that doesn't serve me in the long run? Because obviously, the nation has a lot of finite-minded leadership in the world. A lot of times when one serves themselves in leadership, it affects everybody that they're leading, right? So, and this pandemic is possibly one of the ways in which leadership has failed us in some way. But this is not about blame. This is like, okay, that's the situation. So what are we going to do to be resilient? And this is something that I talked about last show too, is like, you cannot control what happens outside of you. Absolutely not. Nothing. Can't control. You may think you can, but you can't control your spouse. You can't control your coworkers, your parents. So you definitely, your friends, you definitely can't control the government and what it's doing and the world and the disease and virus and whatever, blah, blah, blah. You can control how you react and how you respond and how you let it transform you for ill or for good, right? 100% you can control you. And that should empower you. That should make you feel like, oh snap, oh snap, I could just turn this shit around. I have all the power. I have everything I need to thrive, right? I have everything I need to get through this. I have everything I need to get stronger, to be better. And And that's definitely a mantra that I said to myself many times where I feel super down, or maybe I don't know what to do next. Even if I don't know what to do next, I still say this to myself, like, I have everything I need. It will come to me. It will come to me. Maybe I don't know it right now, but it will come. It'll come. Like, you can't get everything at once, right? It's just impossible. You would explode. So I have everything I need. Maybe I don't see it now. Maybe I'm not hearing it. Maybe it's always been there, and I just haven't seen it or heard it or felt it yet. But I have everything I need, and it will come. Alrighty? It doesn't mean to be passive, for sure. Still being active, still taking responsibility and being accountable for your actions. But yeah, you do. You have everything you need. Okay. So, short show today. It's just me. So, we'll see you next time here on the KLV Podcast. I hope that was helpful for you. Drop something in the comments if you want to contribute to the conversation. What's going on with you? And we'll see you next time. Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the KLV Podcast. Learn more about us at kevinlavouweddings.com or on Instagram @kevinlavou, @KLV Podcast. You can rate and review us on iTunes and watch us on YouTube. Join us next time, sharing more of our experiences and lessons.